YouTube, what's that word? It's your boy Marko Stats, and this is another episode of Marko Stats Reacts. To be honest, y'all, I'm feeling kind of sick today. I had a sinus infection for the last few days, but I've been fighting through it. I made a promise to myself saying I was going to drop at least one video on my channel per day, so we're going to fight through it. I'm a man of my word. I don't like to say something and then go back on it. I know that sometimes that does happen, but when I make a promise to myself, I like to stand on that shit. So, yeah, man. Today we're gonna be reacting to some Chicago content. For those of you guys who do not know, I am from Chicago myself, but I'm from the north side of Chicago. You see, the north side of Chicago doesn't really get that much coverage. People don't really know too much about the north side of Chicago. We hear about the south side. We hear a little bit about the west side. The north side only had a couple rappers. We had Young Pappy, who was my homie, and then we had Polo G, who kind of took the torch and ran with it. Shout out to both of them guys. But besides that, it's not too many other faces, besides me. But you guys already know that. I should make a documentary on the north side of Chicago because I haven't seen one yet. Or matter of fact, I've seen a couple that was made on Pappy, but yeah, I wonder if anybody is gonna make a documentary on like the north side as a whole and like the history of it and how black people even like ended up on the north side and like the Cabrini Green projects, which was the most notorious projects in America in the 90s. The most notorious projects in America in the 90s was on the north side of Chicago. And some of the roadhouses are still up, but they tore down the projects, like most of it. But some of the roadhouses are still up to this day. I got some people that live there, actually. But today, we're going to be talking about the west side of Chicago. You see, the west side of Chicago doesn't really get talked about as much compared to the south side. They get talked about more than us, of course, but compared to the south side, people don't really know too much about the west side. But the west side got some notable figures. They got Bernie Mac is from the west side, Lupe Fiasco, Twista, to name a few. The new kid on the block, Vanov 1700, he from the west side. He going crazy right now. So without further ado, I'm going to stop that talking and we just going to jump right into the video, how drill changed the west side of Chicago. Let's get it.
So many things in Chicago make so very little sense. Why is our vice mayor a former bank robber? Why was the most corrupt politician in the city the most influential? How did the mob, the most well-known organized crime syndicate in the entire country, end up transitioning into legal business so successfully that they now own city property and thus
Because we always been against the city,
make taxpayer money? Just look at these two charts. They're 10 years old, but not much has changed, at least in Chicago. Now, in New York City, the homicide rate remained within 5 to 15 people per every 100,000 in most of the city, meaning that regardless if only 15% of your neighborhood was in poverty or 30%, you could argue that you still had the same chance of being murdered to some extent. Except Mid-South Manhattan, apparently, the area just south of Midtown Manhattan but north of the Flatiron District, where only 10% of the area is impoverished, but you are far more likely to be a victim of a murderer. But with how much New York changes, it's unclear if this still remains the same. However, looking at the same chart in Chicago, there is a clear difference. The most impoverished neighborhoods in and around the city see a far lower homicide rate than areas where poverty is 30% less prevalent. Fuller Park is the only neighborhood with a homicide rate above 100 per every 100,000, where over 50% of the residents are in poverty. Majority of the neighborhoods in the middle are on the south side, including areas like Inglewood, and despite many of the clickbait YouTube videos, Woodlawn, where the most famous hood in Chicago is nowhere near the most dangerous part of the city, nor has it ever been outside of maybe a month or two over the past 10 years. Burnside is by far the wealthiest neighborhood with a homicide rate over 100 people per one.
Burnside. I never even heard of this area before. Is this on the north side? Because like another stereotype about the north side of Chicago is that it's all nice and it's all rich people and wealthy people and all that, but a lot of people don't know that there's wealthy areas on the south side. There's wealthy areas on the west side. There's treacherous areas on the north side. Like, like, to be honest, the whole Chicago as a whole is really is really treacherous. But yeah, Burnside. If you guys know where that's at, let me know, because I'm finna look it up.
100,000, and this is due to the fact that gang violence in Chicago is very unorthodox, as many streets and neighborhoods in the city are very well kept and clean. Unless you're a local, you'd never be able to tell if you were in a bad neighborhood or not in most of the South Side. And this is due to only about 1% of each neighborhood on the South Side contributing to the crime, as most black families in this area are primarily entrepreneurs or city and state workers. But right here is the danger zone, where poverty finally meets violence. Here we have East and West Garfield Park and North Lawndale. If you don't know what this is.
So Burnside is located on the south side of Chicago. And he just said that it's the most wealthiest neighborhood in Chicago. So if that's correct, because I still haven't done more research, that means that the wealthiest neighborhood in Chicago is on the south side. And that's pretty ironic, because people would think it would be the north side, right?
Welcome to the west side of Chicago, a completely different world than the south side, from the lingo to the way danger zone, where poverty about 1% of each neighborhood on the south side contributing to the crime, as most black families in this area are primarily entrepreneurs or city and state workers. But right here is the danger zone, where poverty finally meets violence. Here we have East and West Garfield Park and North.
So East and West Garfield Park, I used to be around there a lot, because one of my homies used to stay around that area, man. Shout out to that boy Akram. He used to stay around over there. North Lawndale. It's called North Lawndale, but it's on the west side of Chicago. Man, it's hella treacherous over there too, man. I heard stories about North Lawndale since I was a shorty,
North Lawndale. If you don't know what this is, welcome to the west side of Chicago. A completely different world than the south side, from the lingo to the way people dress and even the way the streets are set up, as many people from the south side are completely unable to navigate this area due to the south side primarily being navigated by numbers, i.e. 63rd, 64th, and 65th. It doesn't take rocket science to know that all of these are a block apart from each other. But how would you know that Karloff, Keeler, Kildare, and Cullen are all a block apart? Unless you know the west side. That's an area known as K-Town, by the way, for obvious reasons. You got 10 blocks in a row, back to back, all starting with a K. This is also within Garfield Park. As you can see on this map, this large concentration of blue, dark blue being the most dangerous, the west side has far eclipsed the south side in danger, as despite the reputation, there are plenty of areas out south you can walk around without a problem, and many people in Chicago don't.
Barack Obama used to live on the south side, y'all. It's hella, Farrakhan live on the south side. I drove past his house the other day on Folksnum.
Even know this. And like I said, the south side even looks nice for the most part, but this changes quite a bit on the west side. Also, if you ever want to offend
the west side, the west side got some real poverty-stricken areas, man. I'm telling y'all boys, y'all got no fucking idea, bro. Like, the west side is crazy. The west side, I feel like, has the most gangs. Like, they got like different type of gangs. It's not like they got the GDs, BDs, Breeds, Black Souls, Foes, Vice. Like, it's so many gangs that's on the west side. It's more like the west side is more diverse than the south side when it comes to gangs, I feel like.
Somebody from the west side, which I don't recommend, just ask them if they still bop. The west side used to be known for dancing, getting money, and the fact that you could party over there without getting viciously murdered. Now, there's no doubt that in 2025, Von off 1700 is the hottest rapper from the west side, with basically the whole city on his back. But he represents the shift in Chicago from south to west, although this shift started while Von was still just a kid. The south side, to be honest, has been known for the past 30 years as the part of the city where if you was gangbanging, you were more likely to get killed over nothing, essentially. Way before you ever got in a dispute over some money or even started to hustle. Or was this just perception? And the west side was always worse all along. I know that people from outside the hood might think that everywhere people are gangbanging over things like territory or selling drugs, but this is Chicago. Now, Mexico. On the south side, a young guy will kill you for talking to his girlfriend before he kills you over any block or street or anything like that. Most of these guys out here ain't never hustled a day in their life. It's killers that get busy hunting their ops in the streets or posted up playing defense on the block right before they go back to their mama house and ask what's for dinner. The difference with the West Side, at least 10 to 15 years ago, is that this is where gangbanging was closer to the stereotype that most people on the outside would imagine. Those guys got money, ran extortion rackets, had 50,000 a day operations going on, if not more. Madison Street on the West Side has been featured in several documentaries in the past when the Sinaloa cartel was feeding the plugs in this area. People from out of town and even the rich kids downtown and in the suburbs knew where to come to get the best quality high. And if you haven't heard of the Flores twins in Chicago, they were at one time considered the biggest drug traffickers in the United States, and they used to buy directly from the Sinaloa. After they were arrested in 2008, it came out that several of their family members helped them out with laundering and hiding money all over the country, and they also helped the FBI's case against El Chapo. Fun fact, I'm not going to say his first name, but in 2004 when I was a kid, me and my mom lived in an apartment on the West Side, and our landlord was a young man, last name Flores. He couldn't have been older than 35, but he owned several properties in the city and appeared to be very wealthy, and he was always in a good mood. I remember visiting his house when my mom was paying rent, and he had a huge aquarium built in the walls that ran basically through his entire apartment unit. But we only got to live in one of his apartments for about 11 months before all of a sudden we had to move because the FBI had begun seizing Flores' property. He had apparently been suspected or accused of drug trafficking. And that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about that. The different sides in Chicago, like in any big city, might as well be different cities altogether. And while the South Side was gangbanging and you couldn't stay at a party past 1 a.m. without hearing heavy artillery, the West Side has always been the part where no doubt gangbanging has always played a big role, and you can definitely still get hurt, but this historically used to be the part where everybody was comfortable staying outside all night. Nobody on the West Side ever used to be in the house, and it was never an issue to pop out there and have a good time and even be out all night until the sun came up. Something that you wouldn't expect from a city as dangerous as Chicago, especially not in an area as dangerous as the West Side. But I've seen it myself. Despite the gangs, this used to be the area where people felt the most comfortable, at least in the hood.
Now, I'd say the change started around the part of the drill era where drill kind of started to fall off in 2015, 2016. That's when the biggest rapper out of the city was by far Famous Dex, who, despite coming from Inglewood, he brought a completely different energy to music with his unique style. And he even got some criticism because even though he came up around guys like FBG Duck, who was already big in drill, once he realized that his more party-oriented music was taking off and probably an easier sell to a record label to sign him, he left everybody. And you can't blame the labels. The Chief Keef era from 2014 and 2017 was legendary, but from a label standpoint, all he had done was drop an album that didn't perform as well as they wanted to. And because they weren't focused on underground success like they were in the SoundCloud era, which ironically came right after Keef got out of his deal and cemented his place as an underground legend. But when Dex, Playboy Cardi, and even Lil Pump came up in this underground wave, music shifted away from drill briefly, but it ended up making a full comeback by 2018 when Duck dropped Slide and A Certain Guy got out of jail and went straight to the top of the charts. And during this time, violence on the West Side was slowly increasing, and unfortunately, drill was becoming a way out again, and I'm sure the guys out west were more than tired of hearing South Side people thinking they were still just dancing and gangbanging. And again, I must stress this, the West Side was always dangerous. When I lived over there before high school, my neighborhood school was Crane.
That's crazy. I know exactly where that's at too.
Which for an introduction,
I used to buy weed over there. Folks said.
Right after we moved to the area, somebody got killed shooting dice in front of the school, and I was terrified that one day this was going to be the school I was going to have to attend if I didn't get accepted into another high school in the city. I was in second grade, by the way, so I don't even know why I was worried about starting high school, but the West Side just might be the most unique part of the city, but man, when you're out there, it's very clear where you are. Whether you're in Humble Park, Austin, or Little Village, each neighborhood is very distinct, and if you weren't old enough to remember when people call parties Fifis, man, you really missed out.
Fifis, like I was saying. I fuck with that, man. I fuck with that documentary, with that perspective. I was born on the west side of Chicago. I was born in Cook County Hospital, but I was raised on the north side of Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So I represent the north side of Chicago, but yeah. The west side of Chicago is definitely a different world, and he not capping. The west side of Chicago always been dangerous. It's just that when drill came out with Sosa and them on the south side, You know, it just made the South Side just look like a complete war zone. But, you know, like I said, the whole city of Chicago's fucked up, man. There's danger everywhere, even on the north side where I'm from. But there you guys have it, man. Shit, man, what do you guys think, man? If you've been to Chicago before and you know what I'm talking about, or, you know, you got your own opinions on this video or on anything I said, make sure that y'all comment on this video. Make sure that y'all like this video. And make sure that y'all click the notification bell so that you guys can be updated on all of my videos. But till next time, y'all know who it is, man. It's Swayze, man. Swayze. Take care, y'all. Love.